Hey guys, welcome back to the Tahyira show on YouTube. On this episode, I'm honestly a tad bit sad to be talking about this. It's like the reason I felt like I put this down as a topic that I wanted to talk about was because it made me feel, so sad, so helpless. And I told you guys in the previous episode, Talk 1, that, most of us are inspired and we're like pushed to move when we feel like uncomfortable based off something. So this is about school shooting.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
And the PSA that the Sandy Hook Promise put out, that kind of went viral, and people said it was, oh my God, it was too much, it was too graphic. But it's like, I never understand when something happens in the real world and then they portray it in like a video where there's obviously actors, that the video that's the portrayal gets seen like it's too much, as if the real world aspect of it isn't bad enough. The main point that I want to address is, like, I watched the video like a few times and it kind of like, it pushed my thought provocation. Something that I say all the time is like, oh my God, it made me think. And I'm like, the school shooting, it's like a two-pronged kind of issues thing, right? It's the gun control, and then also just this kind of mass murderer kind of thing that we're also living in, because that's like a twofer, It got me thinking about, like, this is a note that I wrote down. I'm like, how come it's like, when we talk about Black people or we talk about Spanish people, like, everyone has a stigma. Every time there's something that happens in our country, the way we process it race-wise, it's through some type of stigma. But for whatever reason, school shootings, I'm talking about all the way back to Columbine, there's only one race really that does this in our country. How come the race aspect, attachment, has not been made? How come, as like our president would say, the Spanish people in the country or Mexicans are coming in, they're this. The Black people are incarcerated more because they're criminals. Well, there's something to say about white people, white males or like teenagers or whatever it is, the upbringing of them that causes these issues. But we don't talk about that aspect of it. I've yet to hear that be an issue. Like, how are these children raised in their house prior to these situations? When the story normally hits, is usually them scrambling to try to protect these people because, like, for example, this is not a school shooting, but I saw it so blatantly when it was the Charleston shooter. All these people just rallied against this white kid, and they didn't even know him. They looked for everything. Oh, it can't be this, can't be that. Then to come out that he had like pictures with Confederate flags. It's like, no debunking that. And then everyone tried to back away from him, But they always do that, and it's like, why every other race gets to be named for something bad, negative, you know what I mean? But they're not responsible for killing all these children in high school. The fact that people are scared to go to high school. The fact that the debate is becoming teachers should be strapped up to be in school because white people don't know how to raise their children the right way. My whole take on it is like, how come it's fair or how come it exists? I mean, nothing in this country is fair kind of or towards us, but let's say fair, because it's supposed to be fair. Equality, right? But it's okay for white WPs to protect their kids, block their kids from public opinion, all these things. But they throw our people, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, into like this limelight or the spotlight of like, well, they're aggressive and they're this, and he was probably had a hoodie on and had a fake gun and was attacking a cop, which never happened because he was big. How come that gets to just happen? And when it's their kids on the line, we can't do it. Like, if we do it, it's like, oh, well, let's not use race, But when it's them, it's like, it's all freaking open season on Spanish and Black people. Like, I don't understand that disparity at all. And I think we definitely need to talk about it more. Not like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, it's not going to change. Like, no, like, talk about it so that it changes. This is the reason why I'm making this vlog, because watching that video, it was all kinds of kids in the video. Like I say, this school shooting, it doesn't, like, bullets don't have names and faces. Like, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, everybody is in an issue. But I'm talking about the aspect of race in it and how white people are just not being blamed for this when it's clearly their kids shooting up high school. When you hear us talk about the access to mental health and things like that, it's usually not the people who are actually are shooting up or doing types of things. Like, they are in, like I said, suburbia. Their parents are middle income. They're white. They have access to mental health care. It's not like you're growing up in the hood and you don't even know what a psychiatrist or a therapist's office looks like, because you never, you know, not just you, the generation that you're born in, your mom and them, your grandma and them, your great grandma and them, nobody ever went to therapy. It's not like that in their community, you know? They have child psychology. I went to an all-white school. I repeat again, I had a lot of friends who studied child psychology, and I'm like, what do you mean child psychology? They're like, yeah, there's like little kids that go to that need help. And I'm like, little kids? I work with this lady in LA. I did like a spreadsheet for her. That's exactly what she was. She was a child psychologist. She was trying to get all her contacts in like a database, and she was trying to, like, you know, promote and like start sending newsletters out because she's opening like a new practice from her home. And I was like, wait, what kind of people do you see? Like, what kids? She's like, oh, you know, it's like, you know, like kids, like like littles, like we call them littles, like 3 to 4 and 5 and 6. And she said she was trying to get into more like junior high school age, where it's like a lot more like, you know, I guess you need more like schooling and stuff like that to study like adolescence and stuff. Because junior high school, I would never work with junior high school kids. It's just too much hormonal stuff going on. Just sidebar. But hats off to people that do, because that's a very, you know, I'm not gonna say tumultuous age. It's an age where you're going through so much change, and you need someone who's knowledgeable and who has like the patience and actually wants to do it. You know, it's a care job. It's not a job where you're like, oh, well, I think I could do this. Like, you know, you need to want to do that. You know, that's just me. But yeah, she was saying that her clients, whatever, and I was like, so I'm like, how do you get paid? She's like, well, they're parents, you know. I'm like, oh, right, you know. I touched on raising children. You know, I have a note about, like, you know, how white children are raised. I mean, they're being raised in privilege. Their parents are privileged. They're privileged. That's not their fault. You know, that's society. It's a societal fault that this is the way the society has skewed. This is not really on them. But let's just talk about that little dynamic. You know, you're growing up. It's kind of like, do they tell their children about like the laws, breaking the laws? Like, I never forget the hashtag. It was my favorite hashtag during Black Lives Matter. I think I don't know how much time. I spent a lot of time on Twitter, so let me not even lie. But criming while white. I mean, I wish they could bring it back. Like, I was feeding, like, I'm like, can y'all bring it back? Can y'all keep talking about this? Because not enough of us, like, got to even, like, experience that. Criming while white was the hashtag. And the whole point of it, people were getting upset, of course, but there's black ignorant people that's just like, oh my God, you see what I'm trying to say? I'm like, the reason they're posting this is that the entire society can see. Again, everybody is a part of this. Like, you know, it's not their fault that they were born white. It's not my fault that I was born black. It is what it is, you know? But we need to figure out a way that we can have these conversations. So, we be on Twitter. Criming while white. Like I said, I go back into my Nassau County sector of life, you know? I got pulled over basically for me and my boyfriend at the time being just black in a car that had tints. They pulled me over for tints. You know, there's kids that were tweeting. They were tweeting from New York, like in Nassau County, same town. They're just like, yeah, me and my friend were like driving on the wrong side of the road. We were past the sheriff and he didn't even say anything. Like, all kind of crazy shit. I'm just like, this is their reality. No, this is their reality. You know, I studied criminal justice in the white school. So on top of just going to school with them or whatever, I would get into debates with people because, you know, a lot of the stuff that would come up was, you know, we had difference of opinion because you're training to be a cop that's probably going to just be like, you know, I'm not going to say none of the people in my school, because this is New York, you know, people are not like racist in that way. I couldn't say I went to school with a bunch of racists, no. But definitely white people, like, you know, they have the mentality of a white privileged person. So it's kind of like they're here, they're not even focused in school, you know what I mean? They don't value the same things that we value. I'm sitting up front, my parents are like busting their neck for me to go to this private school, whatever. I'm in front taking notes and they're just like fucking around in the back, answering questions when they want to, you know, like getting into debates just because, like, not even because, you know, but I would get into it with people. A lot of them would say the same things. It's like, oh, well, you know, our reality is different than you guys. I'm like, yeah, because you could walk down a block in this neighborhood without being bothered, and they look at me like, what am I doing in this neighborhood? All those things, I think, play a part. I know it plays a part into what people feel that they can get away with. A lot of these school shooters, they know, you know, on top of the fact that they're going to jail and all those things anyway, that's not even that factor for them, which is the sad part, you know? It's like most of us, when we commit a crime, we think about consequences. That's like a human nature thing. We commit crimes in the hood is like, well, not about to get caught. We thought about it 50 million times. Like, we're doing whatever we need to do. They don't operate like that. They operate on a very high level of just more so, I don't give a shit if I get caught. I felt like this. I wanted to do this. I don't care, mom. And I'm shooting up the students. That's kind of more of their mentality. And we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that, because if we don't, what's to stop the next person to raise a kid that, you know what I mean? I think the onus, like I used to say all the time when I was working with the English people, the onus is on them. Like, the onus is on you guys to fix your children, to figure out, or to raise them the right way, to raise them to not think that it's okay to just be privileged. Like, you know, just because you have privilege doesn't mean you need to act that way. There's a lot of my friends, like a lot of people that I met in Los Angeles too, specifically, a lot of them left their family, like left their homes or whatever from like middle of America after Trump, because they just couldn't stay at home anymore, because they were like arguing with people. Like, it got really crazy for a lot of people, and I like engage in those conversations because I'm like so interested to know, so that when I'm making vlogs like this, I don't sound one-sided. On the flip side, growing up black, we train our children to behave a certain way when you're in front of authority figures, when you're in front of police, when you're in front of like teachers, principals, church people, elderly, you know, especially more so in the West Indian community too. They're like very much from the crown rule, like England and over there European. It's very way more strict than just manners, and all those things are like a big deal. The American aspect of it is like, not as strict, but it's the same kind of thing with the black community. We definitely tell our children about, you know, the ways of the world. Like, you just seen in that movie when they see us, you saw, like, I feel like why Ava and them even told the beginning part of that story was to show you how the parents were raising these kids, to give you their background. You know, you saw the Spanish kid, John Leguizamo, I think. You saw hardworking, like, I can't even be here because if I miss a shift, they're gonna fire me, but he still showed up for his son. The other one, like, you know what I mean? Just really giving different, like, that's a real story, like, for real. And it mimics so many of us, you know? So many of us have that, like, come straight home after school, I don't want you hanging out, you're gonna get into some shit, you're hanging out with your friends, you know how the cops are. Like, that's how we're literally raised, you know? Be home before the street light come on, all this shit. We don't have friends or like our parents that got cars. We're all, majority of us are latchkey. We're just out in these streets, like, in whatever neighborhood, you know? There's a ghetto in every neighborhood. I'm from Brooklyn. That's where I was, you know? And then, like I said, I grew up in a mixed neighborhood, and it was still the same thing. It's like, you gotta be home by the street light, whatever, like, you know? And I tried to be focused growing up, so I wasn't really out that late, but I would be outside though, you know, getting into mischief. So that's the flip side of like growing up, you know, in a black community. It's very rare for you to see a school shooter be a black kid, because it's like we're not raised to do shit like that. Like, first of all, where the hell are we getting the gun from? That's number one. Number two is like, I'm not gonna shoot my kids, my friends, bro. Like, you feel me? Like, we just don't operate on that. I don't know. We'll probably more so hurt ourselves before we hurt others. You know, not to make it seem like black people are saints around this country, because we're not. We're not saints, but we also don't commit school shootings, and that's the topic of this vlog. The topic that I'm going to address, that's the black community's problem in high school, is the gangs, you know? So, coming for us as well. But this conversation, I just want to let you guys know, just so when you hear these things happen, it comes up, your awareness is peaked a little bit more. Talk about the disparity, talk about the race aspect of it. We don't care anymore. We're not being polite, you know? I'm kind of tired of living in a society where we need to still act like they're masters of us. No, I'm not. You're a fellow American like me. You did something stupid. I'm letting you know, like, why are you not raising your kid the right way? You know? Same like when they tell us, like, well, why we don't want you guys in our community because you have gangs and shit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, we need to talk about that too, you know? Just so anybody watching, I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, it's just ways to open conversations, because like I said, I talk to all kinds of people, all kinds of Americans that come from all different parts. And that's how I have, like I say, my thoughts get provoked, and I'll be out here. The note that I put about just a personal reflection from being like a young woman who's married, who, you know, I'm constantly thinking about like family, and, you know, if I want a kid, or, you know, my kid would be mixed, you know, black and Spanish, so like, it's like double whammy. But yeah, I just don't have that, you know, I don't have that gumption, I don't have that drive, I don't have that hope right now. I feel better like doing shit like this, recording this vlog, feeling like I'm putting something positive out into the world, trying to open conversations for people, difficult conversations at that. But yeah, the one of the reasons I don't want to have a kid is because my kid is not safe out here, you know? They're just not. And it's, I don't know if people are like, oh no, that's not but it matters to me, you know? Because when they talk about black kids getting killed, or like kids being killed in schools, like it just hits me on another level, you know? And I can't live or survive in a society with a kid. that these things are happening to. You know, I was on the Sandy Hook Promise like newsletter for a while, and it's not just them, it's a few other charities that have formed that I tried to be in tune with. And you know, when September first started, it was just like, it was too many emails coming out, you know, and it's just like they were calling different parts of the story. And you know, because that's when the elementary school kids, like 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds are like just killed, you know. It's like, it's too much. It's like I don't even know, you know. It's just like certain levels of cruelty I just can't understand. Same thing when I watch like the world news, and they show like terrorists and fighting and wars and what it does to like children. It's just like, it's heart-wrenching, you know. So for me, it is a deterrent of having children and family and things like that. And I talked to my husband about it, and he kind of feels the same way. It's like, what do we need kids for? Like, what are we about to do? We haven't changed the world for them any yet. You know, we're trying to do all these things. Like, you know, it's like, what are we about to do? Like, that's just not my thing. You know, and I guess we're just not, like, you know, motherhood and fatherhood, I guess, is just not higher up on our priority list. Maybe it's just that simple too. But I know for me, these issues, like Trayvon Martin, like marching for Black Lives, those are the things that I always thought about. Like, I can't have a kid out here, bro. Like, they can't hashtag my kid. Like, I'm not that person, you know? So that's just a little transparency for you guys. I'm gonna wrap up this vlog by saying, back to my original thesis statement that it makes me sad. So it kind of came full circle back to the kind of sadness. But you know, sometimes it's okay to be sad. It's okay to have emotions that are on the lower end of the spectrum, because it, like I said, those are the ones that make us react, change, think, just put our perspective on it, you know. And this is my perspective. I love these conversations that I get into with people on Twitter that want to help. We were talking about what was happening this week. I don't remember, but I know someone hit me up, and it was about, she's like a white lady, and she's trying to figure out how she can be an ally to like the whole Black. Oh, it was the this is what my next vlog is about. So I don't want to get into it actually here, so you'll have to stay tuned. But it was a goodie. I am Tahyira Savanna, and you're checking out my YouTube channel. Make sure you're following me everywhere. You can find me on Instagram as iletthegoodtimesroll. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm Tahyira Savanna, writer, dreamer, weirdo. I'm on Twitter as T***, and you can find me on Snapchat too, just by Tahyira. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you subscribe if you like this type of content, because I got a lot more stuff to talk about.